Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. Welcome, one and all. We got a lot to cover. The State of the Union of President Trump's, which will go down in history, maybe it already has, as the greatest State of the Union ever. You know, this State of the Union called out the Democrats like no State of the Union ever has done. By the way, no State of the Union with any other president, regardless of political party, has exposed their opposition like this one did. And, you know, there were many, many moments. I'm not going to go through all the moments now. I did that extensively on the morning show. But there was the one where President Trump said, hey, if you believe that your primary duty is to support Americans and not illegal immigrants, stand up. And they wouldn't stand up. What the Democrats were saying was they don't care about Americans. In fact, what they were saying was that everyone in the MAGA Republican Party who had talked about the great replacement theory were right. They were saying that they don't care about Americans because Americans have given up on the Democrat Party and moved over to the Trump train in the MAGA movement. So they're worried about their precious illegal aliens. And it was some moment. But there were other times when they did not stand up for things that were universally good. And JD Vance, who is in line to be the second MAGA president, JD Vance, Vice President JD Vance, he shared something that he noticed, and this is him. This is JD Vance, the second MAGA president, on Fox today, talking about because he got to see the House from a perspective that we didn't, and he picked up on something that none of us could see, but he saw because of where he was.
Well, I saw a couple of things, Bill. First of all, obviously, most Democrats didn't stand up or clap. And you know, what a shame that is. What a sad commentary that is on the Democratic Party, that the idea that the American government should stand for American citizens, not illegal aliens, that shouldn't be controversial, but apparently it was to the Democrats. But
Yeah.
I will say, Bill, something that I saw that probably most TV viewers didn't see was really the cowardice, because there were a few Democrats who sort of politely clapped. They didn't want to stand up. I guess maybe they were worried about being primaried by the far left fringe of their party. But they were all looking around. They weren't actually saying, you know what, I'm going to stand and support this because this is a common sense, obvious statement. They were all looking around for cues from their colleagues because they didn't have the courage to stand on their own. And that, more than anything, Bill, is the saddest commentary on the Democratic Party, that not only will they not stand for the idea that Americans should come first, they won't even have the courage of their convictions. Mm-hmm. They lean on the person to their left and their right rather than actually have some conviction. That is unfortunately what's true about Democrats in Washington today.
Well, basically what JD Vance is saying here is the Democrats had, it's like if you go and see the television taping out in California of some sitcom or something, they have an applause line and they have somebody out there conducting them, telling them when it's okay to stand, when to sit, when not to clap. That they're totally terrified by the party bosses who are controlled by the Democrat donors, and that no one in the Democrat Party has a mind of their own. You know, the thing with J.D. Vance, I saw this today, and I thought this before about J.D. Vance, and I don't think I've ever talked about this. You know, he was in the Senate for like 5 minutes, right? 2 years. And a chunk of that he was running with President Trump, but he kind of new to Washington. And I feel like that J.D. Vance, when Trump picked him to be his running mate, is so new to Washington, D.C., and he's not a part of that elite class. Everybody knows J.D. Vance's background, that he just hasn't been corrupted like all these other swamp creatures there, right? He just hasn't been corrupted by the Washington power brokers and the Washington establishment and all of that. He seems like an honest guy, doesn't he? And there's not too many people in Washington, D.C. that have not been corrupted by, you know, the Beltway system. But I think J.D. Vance, to me, seems to have not been corrupted by any of that, which is so unusual when you're someone like him that doesn't have the family or connections that so many of the permanent Washington class have. So Trump, it looks like Trump did a good job picking J.D. Vance. But it truly is a sad statement on the Democrats that they can't even clap when they want to. they have to wait until their handler tells them to. I wonder if a handler was telling Tlaib and Ilhan Omar to yell out profanities at the president. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Craig. You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure that you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And the Brian Craig Show podcast is available on all podcast platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for the Brian Craig Show, and I'll pop up. If you want to catch the live show in video form, that's on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search the Brian Craig Show. So CNN reporting that the Democrats are in a real bad space. Listen to this.
So we see Governor Newsom. He's got a book, I think, which actually publishes today. He's in the middle of the fray of possible Democratic contenders. So what do the polls say?
Yeah, they're all running, and this is just a downright clown car at this point on the Democratic side. I mean, just take a look here. Top choices for the 2028 Dem-Pres nominee. You have a leader, but it's not really a clear leader. It's within the margin of error. You have Newsom at 19%.
Oh, my goodness.
Then you have former Vice President Kamala.
I wonder if that poll was taken before or after his racist comments the other day, Newsom.
28 Dem-Pres nominee. You have a leader, but it's not really a clear leader. It's within the margin of error. You have Newsom at 19%. Then you have former Vice President Kamala Harris at 18%. Quite a weak number for her, given that, of course, she was the nominee last time around. Pete Buttigieg, who, of course, has run before, 13%. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 12%. This is just a total clown car. It is a total mess. There is no clear front runner at this particular point on the Democratic side. Who the heck knows who the nominee is going to be in 2 years?
It's been a long time since we've had a Democratic race like this.
Yeah, it has been a long time. This is very unusual for the Democratic side to not have a clear front runner at this point. National early poll leader at least 25%. Look at this. This year, we get the giant question mark. No one. In 2020, when there was no incumbent, it was Joe Biden who was there, Hillary Clinton in both 08 and 16, and Al Gore in both 2000 and 2004 at this point. We're at least at 25% of the early polls. You have to go all the way back from when I wasn't even in elementary school yet, not even in pre-K yet, to 1992. That was the last cycle in which there was no clear front runner at this point. Very unusual.
Wow. So you've got to go back in time to 1992 to find when the Democrats didn't have a clear front runner. I mean, that's pretty, and that's CNN reporting. And you got to remember, CNN, they don't usually report news like this. You know, something's happened over at CNN. They're becoming a news channel all of a sudden, and out of the blue, they're reporting things that they would always suppress. You know, I'll disagree with this guy a little bit. I don't think that the Democrats had clear front runners in these other races. I think it's normal for them not to have clear front runners. But what they would have is they would have the media create a front runner. All right, we got no one, so let's take Biden. Let's take Hillary. Al Gore may be the exception because when he ran in 2000, when he started running, he was the vice president. But I don't think they've ever had a clear front runner. The media hype people up and create front runners from nothing. That's how we ended up with John McCain as the nominee of the Republican Party. You know, I got a few things here I want to share. There a massive crowd met at West Florida University today to see James fish sticks. This is a massive crowd. I've been talking about this guy with you guys all week. Fishback is running as a Republican in the Republican primary against Byron Donalds and two others for the Republican nomination for the governor of Florida. President Trump has endorsed Byron Donalds, so I'm gonna vote for whoever President Trump tells me to, and you should too, no matter what. But I've been telling you guys all week long that Fishback he has a ground game going like I've never seen in the state of Florida with anyone have a ground game like this guy. And just today, I'm going to play some things just from today. He's been all over the state of Florida. This guy, he's campaigning like it's the week before the election. And I don't mean the primary. He's campaigning around Florida like it's the week before the November election. It's all day, every day. And let me share a couple of things. This is Fishback, huge crowd. And the age of the crowd is varied. There's a lot of young people, but there's older people as well at these events.
We visited the Middle East as missionaries. No, that cannot be allowed. And let me be very clear. While Palantir announced that Florida was their new home last week, Palantir is not welcome in Florida if I am governor.
He says all the right things all the time, no matter where he's at. All the applause lines.
The same weapons that are used on foreign battlefields to spy on terrorists should never be trained on American citizens on U.S. soil. A mass surveillance state, whether run by the CIA or a private company run by Peter Thiel, violates the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. As governor, I will ban Palantir from every government contract. You will not spy on our citizens.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one. This is all today in the news. Then there was, let me see here. Oh, yes, here he is, same event. And this is Fishback. He's talking about Pam Bondi and the Epstein files. Now, remember, Pam Bondi's a Floridian.
I am ashamed that in my own party, there are men who would cover for Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators. It's time for Pam Bondi to resign. It's time for Kash Patel to resign. We want the Epstein files unredacted, all 6 million of them. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you touch children, we are going to bring you to justice.
Now, yeah. Now, I don't know. This guy, I don't know if these crowds are real or not. I mean, obviously they're real people. What I mean is I don't know if they're organic and these are people that actually showed up to see him or if they've been rounded up somehow. I don't know. But I do know this. When it comes to politics, perception is very, very important. Now, he is from... let me see which clip this is. Okay. He is from a tiny little town here in Florida, Davie, Florida, which is in Broward County. Davie, Florida is, it's due west of Fort Lauderdale. It's kind of almost like a suburb town of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And pretty well known. If you're a South Florida person, Davie, Florida is very, very well known. And he was born and raised in Davie, Florida. And apparently he owns a condo or something in Washington, D.C., and Byron Donalds reportedly has been questioning whether or not Fishback is qualified to run for governor in Florida. That is he a Florida resident or a D.C. resident? So he was asked about this at this town hall event today, Fishback.
But what is being said is that you're a resident of D.C., so hopefully you can explain that for us here.
I can, and let me give you the background on this. I was born and raised in Davie, Florida. Lived in Florida my entire life. My parents moved to Washington, D.C. in 2019. In 2021...
Now, this is one thing I don't understand why his parents moved to D.C. They're not rich political people. And it just seems a little strange. And I do know he went to Georgetown University, but I don't know why his parents moved to D.C.
In 2019. In 2021, I bought an apartment 3 blocks from theirs because I see my parents all the time. I talk to my parents every single day. In fact, my dad's out there right now traveling with us. I really love my parents. And I bought that place so I could visit them regularly. This attack line is that because I own property in Washington, D.C., that means I'm not a Florida resident. The Florida Constitution, Article 4, Section 5, stipulates the terms under which you can be governor. It says absolutely nothing about owning property in another state as a disqualifying factor. What Byron Donalds is doing, and he's trafficking in this, and that's why we're hearing about this, is instead of trying to debate on the issues, he is trying to literally remove my name off the ballot. I've already consulted with a team of lawyers. There's no case there. I have always lived in Florida. This is my home. I was born here. I will die here. And I look forward to Byron Donalds actually debating the issue as opposed to playing this game of gotcha. Not that Not that you are, but it's a genuine question. But I will absolutely fully qualify, and I look forward to debating him on July 21st.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know a lot of you are wondering, why am I so concerned about this? Well, I'm in Florida. That's part of it. President Trump has endorsed Byron Donalds for governor. And I want to play this one more clip of Fishback. This is from today as well. All right? I mean, he says all the right things.
There is absolutely no reason a 13-year-old in middle school should be smoking a blunt after they get off the bus. Let me make an announcement right here in Okaloosa County. Let's break a little bit of news together. If you're a public school student and there is a stench of marijuana on you, you're taking a drug test.
And he's got the drug test in his hand. He pulled out of his pocket.
You will be taking a drug test. We're not going to expel you. We're not going to suspend you. But we're going to bring your parents in. We're going to have a conversation, because I can't live with the fact that young kids one day will start with marijuana and then a greedy drug dealer will push a Percocet laced with fentanyl on them the next day. It's called tough love.
Okay, so and I'm going to play one clip of Byron so you can compare and contrast the two. But, you know, so I know a lot of you, why am I obsessing over this guy running for the governor of Florida? Well, number one, as I said, I am in Florida, all right? I'm Florida-based. But this, you know, Florida is where the entire MAGA machine operates from. The president lives here. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel live here. Sean Hannity lives here. I mean, a huge chunk of the Kash Patel lives here in Florida. A huge chunk of the cabinet live here in Florida. It's a MAGA. This is where MAGA's at, okay? And to lose it. There's a couple of other things about fish sticks that set off alarms. One in particular, he's very anti-Israel, which of course I'm the opposite of that. I'm a strong supporter of Israel. But I've got a couple of things that set off sirens to me. I am a little concerned that he's got a place in D.C., and then he wants to be our governor. Does he have some establishment connections? But what I learned most about Barack Hussein Obama was this: beware of anyone you've never heard of before coming out of nowhere, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about them and they're on every station. You know, and someone may say, well, Trump came down the escalator. We've all of you have known who Donald Trump is your entire life. Or if you're really old, most of it. He's been worldwide famous in this country since the 1970s, super famous since the 80s. Everybody, you know, he's not some stranger. So this guy, Fishback, comes out of nowhere. I can't open up X without getting 3 or 4 different videos of him every single day that are new at another campaign stop he was at. And he's saying a lot of good things, like drug testing students in the public schools. That's a great idea. Of course that's a great idea. Don't you agree with that? Yeah, I do. That's a great idea. So I don't trust people that come out of nowhere. This is, you know, this is just something that you got to wonder. When somebody comes out of nowhere, I talked about this with Vivek Ramaswamy, who Trump obviously kicked out of the White House. He was kicked out right away in the beginning, running for governor of Ohio, but you don't even see him anymore. And the thing about Vivek that always set off alarms, you got this super rich guy. He does have a Soros connection. But you got this super rich guy like Fishback. Fishback's a big hedge fund guy. He's very wealthy, 31 years old. His parents were not wealthy. His father owned a lawn maintenance company, which means mowed lawns. And he's a millionaire many times over at the age of 31. You know, Vivek was a billionaire. Fishback's a millionaire. And you get these guys that you've never heard of. They come out of nowhere. They're running for high and important offices against important people that are established that we know and can trust, like Byron Donalds. They're saying all the right things, and you got to wonder, well, wait a minute, who is this guy? Do you understand what I mean? Just because someone tells you what sounds good doesn't mean that you can trust them. But Byron Donalds has got to get a little more energetic, because Fishback is gaining momentum here every day in the state of Florida. He was interviewed yesterday. He was interviewed on one of the big Miami television stations by Jim DeFeedme, who is a long-time South Florida newsman. He was a columnist for many, many years with the Miami Herald, and he's a big political reporter with one of the biggest television stations in Miami. And his beat has always been covering politics. And when I saw that DeFeedme was interviewing Fishback this week on this television station in Miami, I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's really being elevated. So he's gaining so much momentum. He's gaining a lot of support, and people dig in when they get support. And here's Byron Donalds this morning on CNN talking about the State of the Union.
The previous economy under Joe Biden, we all know that was a terrible economy for everybody. Everybody was suffering in America.
You brought up GDP growth. Inflation was higher, but GDP growth was also higher during the Biden administration than certainly it was last quarter and the average of year to year. But Congressman, I do want to ask you about...
That's not true, but okay.
GDP growth? You can go check GDP growth. I mean, you can say what you want about inflation, but the GDP is what the GDP was. GDP growth last quarter was 1.4%.
John, here's what I will tell you. Under Joe Biden's economy, wages adjusted for inflation were down in America. I mean, families were falling behind left and right. 13 months with Donald Trump back on the job, wages adjusted for inflation are up.
I was talking about GDP. All I was saying was GDP growth, what you said, was higher under Trump.
Okay, now, I'm not saying that what Byron is saying here is wrong. He's right. I like Byron Donalds. He has the endorsement of the president. So anyone President Trump endorses, I'm going to support and vote for. That's just the way it is. But he's boring here. He's got to get interesting. He's got to get exciting. He's got to talk about things other than the GDP and interest rates. That's terminal. That might be well in the halls of Congress when they're these policy wonks or whatever they call themselves, and they talk about GDP and interest rates. But Fish Sticks is out here on the campaign trail talking about drug testing students in public school that smell like weed when they show up to class. And that sounds like a good idea to me. He's got to get more excited. And I just feel that Byron Donalds is taking the Trump endorsement and telling himself that, and if you do look at the polls, he is way up in the polls, way up in the polls for now. So I think he's taking those polls and he's taking the Trump endorsement, and he does have a lot of name recognition. He's very well known. I want him to be our governor, Byron Donalds. And I feel like he's not taking his opponent serious. And that's why I've been talking about this every day this week. This is the third day in a row I've been talking about this. It's that important. You know, we cannot afford to not have a MAGA Republican as the governor of Florida. And I'm going to continue to talk about this until I see Byron Donalds start acting like he's running for governor and not being anointed. Because I don't feel like he's running at all. I feel like he's just hanging out in Washington. He may have an event here or there, but he needs to get down here to Florida and cover the state. You know, Florida politics is, Florida is a much, much bigger state than people realize. And different parts of the state are just different. And when you're running for statewide office in Florida, you've got to travel around. It was a very famous Democrat governor, Lawton Chiles. He was governor for 8 years. He was a Democrat, and he was in Florida politics forever. He died when he was governor, and his nickname was Walkin' Lawton. Walkin' Lawton, they called him. Walkin' Lawton Chiles. And what he did is he actually walked from one end of the state to the other campaigning. He was known for actually walking across the state of Florida campaigning for offices his whole life. There was another governor. I can't remember his name. He became a senator, another Democrat years ago. He was governor. Then he became senator. I can't remember his name offhand. No. Before that, Kathy, like when we were in high school. Oh, like back in the 80s. I cannot remember his name to save my. Well, this guy, he was one of the most successful politicians in the history of the state of Florida. And he had this thing. He didn't walk the state. He would go from town to town, and for a day he would take a local job. He might work in a hardware store one day, and the next week he was handing out. He was working at a newspaper, putting the papers in the newspaper machines. I can't think of his name. I can see him. It'll come to me. It doesn't matter. Jeb Bush. When Jeb Bush ran for governor twice, before he won. The first time Jeb Bush ran, his father was president of the United States, and he lost. And in the campaign when he won, Jeb Bush, in 1998, he was in a different spot every day in Florida. And I remember during the 98 race, we had him in studio on the radio show, and he was going from our place to a campaign stop that was about an hour and a half drive from where we were. And I was talking to his campaign person, and I said, "Are you guys driving on 95? He says, "No, we got a private plane." They were going an hour and a half away, and they took a plane because he wanted to get to as many places as he could. And by the way, that was during the primary. And that's the first time that Jeb won. So, when you take it for granted, like I feel Byron Donalds is, you will lose. You've got to go out there and campaign. Ron DeSantis, the current governor, he still does this today. From the time he was running the first time until today, every single day, Ron DeSantis is giving a speech somewhere. Today, Ron DeSantis, he's not even running for anything now, but he still does it. Every day, Ron DeSantis is somewhere having a press event, and he's been doing this since he ran for governor the first time. Today, Ron DeSantis dedicated in St. Augustine a beautiful statue of the great Frederick Douglass. He does something like that every single day, and he's done it for 8 or 9 years. That's how Florida, you don't win a statewide race in Florida sitting around talking about the GDP and interest rates to Blue Steel. That's what I call that guy on CNN. He looks like Blue Steel in Zoolander doing the Blue Steel thing. Talking about GDP and interest rates the morning after the State of the Union to this jerk at CNN. And if he doesn't start running like these others who have been successful, well, Fish Sticks is going to win the nomination. That's it. And by the way, Byron Donalds winning the nomination is important for many, many reasons. One of them is that we cannot have in the primary such a high-profile race, the governor of Florida, and have our candidate endorsed by President Trump lose. If Byron Donalds loses the Republican primary, and with the Trump endorsement, okay, that would be devastating in the general election for the Trump endorsement, because the mainstream media would, Trump's endorsement doesn't mean anything anymore. Byron Donalds lost the primary. So no, I'm not overreacting to this. These are things that are very, very important. All right, if you're on hold, hang in there. I'm going to take a break, and when I get back, if you'd like to call in, please do. I got a lot to cover. You're listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast. This is where MAGA comes to talk. My name is Brian Craig. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
Looking for more patients? ProvidersNook.com helps healthcare professionals get discovered. ProvidersNook.com's easy-to-use directory connects local patients with doctors, therapists, and clinics, so your practice stands out when it matters most. ProvidersNook.com makes healthcare easier to find. Patients quickly discover trusted providers nearby, and healthcare professionals gain more exposure, more bookings, and more growth, all in one powerful directory. Best of all, it's very affordable. Go right now to ProvidersNook.com. That's ProvidersNook.com, your premier healthcare provider directory. ProvidersNook.com.
On the line, we have Frank. He's a listener, and he's a client of Jupiter Joe Thomas. Frank, welcome. So, Frank, could you tell me how Jupiter Joe Thomas helped you?
What he's advertising today and putting out there is a fantastic product for people like me, and there's millions of people like me that want a good sound investment, and they want a good sound, caring, loving investment advisor, and that's Jupiter Joe. He's in the business for like 30 years, and he knows his business. Him and his family make you feel so comfortable. You sit down, and he gives you a real full analysis of what's going on and what he has to offer. And I got into these income streams, these streaming products, and I jumped on it right away. And when he told me what I'm going to get, and I'm getting it right now, and on one of them, I was amazed. He doubled what this other so-called investment advisor was offering me, and I'm jumping for joy.
Do what Frank did. Call Jupiter Joe Thomas right now. Schedule your no-charge consultation. Talk to Joe Thomas about annuities and be guaranteed income every month for the rest of your life. 561-743-0999. 561-743-0999 and online, jupiterjoe.com.
Hi, it's Dr. Philip Appleton. You've been hearing my commercials about bye-bye pain, my laser weight treatment, but today's commercial and today's spot is going to be on Tom Laporta, Laporta Roofing. What an experience I've had with him and his company. They've done a few of my friends' houses and my son and my house, and there's never a downtime. They're old school, which means you call them up, they'll be there. How many times have you called somebody up and they never show up, or they give you an excuse, weather, traffic, whatever? Tom Laporta, what a class act. The workmanship, the magnificent teamwork they have. I recommend them 100%.
Thanks, Dr. Appleton. Now do what Dr. Appleton did. Pick up your phone and call Tom Laporta from Laporta Roofing on your cell phone. 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. And online, LaportaRoofing.com. All right, we're back. I'm Brian. Thanks for joining, everyone. The governor that I couldn't remember that went around the state doing different odd jobs. Some days he would be like a lawn man, mowing lawns. He was a governor and went on to be senator. Bob Graham was his name. It just popped in my head during the break. Bob Graham. During this, one last thing on Fishback, then I'm going to move on to other things. During this campaign, I've not seen him once wear a MAGA hat. Is he a Bush Republican? I don't know. Is he MAGA? I don't know. I haven't seen him in a MAGA hat. Okay, so Scott Jennings, who's awesome, right, on CNN. Scott Jennings over on CNN, one of the top Democrats, that brought a troubling guest. Members of Congress, they can bring a guest with them to the State of the Union, and some of them like to showboat about who they're bringing. And Ro Khanna, he brought a guest who he said was an Epstein victim. Well, Scott Jennings did a little investigating and found out that not only is that not true, the exact opposite is true. Listen.
And then there's the curious case of California Congressman Ro Khanna. You've probably seen him on TV, one of the people who has agitated most often for the release of the Epstein files and making some wild and erroneous claims along the way. Well, he is bringing to the speech tonight someone connected to the Epstein files story. Let's hear from Ro Khanna about that person in Cut 12.
Haley Robeson just wants justice. That's why I'm inviting her as my guest tomorrow at the State of the Union. She'll be speaking not just for herself, but for the thousands of survivors.
You heard the name there, Haley Robeson. Now, Ro Khanna says she is speaking for the survivors. But is she? The files show something completely different, that Haley Robeson was, in fact, someone who worked with Jeffrey Epstein to recruit young women to the island. According to CNN's reporting, and I'm just going to read it to you, quote, Robeson told police she remembered bringing 6 girls to Epstein and told authorities she was like a Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood madam who ran a high-class prostitution ring.
Oh, so that didn't make the news. There, all these people obsessed with the Epstein files. He brought not an Epstein victim, but an Epstein, wingman woman. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. You know, the thing about the files, and, you know, this is just it. These people don't care about the victims. They don't care about the files. They just care about trying to slander Trump, you know, and everything that's come out since all the files were released have made the Democrats look like they were up to their eyeballs with this guy. Okay, now, Ilhan, oh, boy, bad night for Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar went through a national embarrassment last night at the State of the Union, equal to what happened with AOC in Munich a couple weeks ago, equal to what happened with Gavin Newsom with his racist comments that he made over the weekend about African Americans. And she was pretty humiliated. She lost control. She couldn't control herself, her body, her language, nothing. And she went on CNN today and talked to Blitzer and tried to resurrect her reputation. And I'll tell you, when you do something and you humiliate yourself like she did, that's a feeling that doesn't go away too soon. And going on television right after, I think she just made it worse. Listen to this. This is Ilhan Omar trying to explain herself to Blitzer.
The House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, advised your caucus, the Democratic members, to either skip the State of the Union address or sit there in silence. Should you have just boycotted the address, and do you think you violated the guidelines set out by your own leader?
No, I think it was really unavoidable. The president talked about protecting Americans, and I just had to remind him that his administration was responsible for killing 2 of my constituents.
Oh.
In Minneapolis, many members of your Democratic Party
talking about the guy with the gun that attacked the ICE agents and Renee Good.
Criticized their Republican counterparts.
Yeah, and you can see in her face, those of you watching on YouTube, you can see in her face, in particular her mouth, that she's in a rage because she knows that she was humiliated by herself last night.
When they interrupted President Biden's State of the Union address, as a lot of us remember, do you have any regrets at all about the interaction we played between you and President Trump just last night?
I do not, and I think many people look at that moment when the president says it is our responsibility to protect Americans, and he does not acknowledge the fact that 2 Americans, 2 of my constituents, 2 of our neighbors.
Were they really her constituents? Weren't they visiting with all their Antifa friends?
Were killed, and it was important for me to just remind the American people that the president and his administration was responsible for killing 2 American citizens.
With hindsight, Congresswoman, do you think you would have been better off boycotting the speech like so many other Democratic lawmakers did, or did you do the right thing by actually showing up there?
Good question.
I brought 4 Minnesotans as guests for the Minnesota delegation. It was important for us to be there, to bear witness, to hold the space for our constituents that have lived through an occupation from federal law enforcement, that have been terrorized, that have seen our neighbors been killed and traumatized in so many ways. And so, no, I think it was really important for my constituents to see me there. It was really important to my constituents to hear that I was reminding the president that Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed under this administration.
Oh, wow. She did incredible damage to herself. President Trump, the whole squad are pretty much not relevant anymore, are they? I mean, you remember when the squad first came to Washington, that they were all that. They were parading around, and she's been discredited. Tlaib's been discredited. AOC's been discredited. Presley's been discredited. The guy that was in the squad, he lost his election. He's no longer in Congress. The guy what was his name? The one that pulled the smoke alarm during the fire. Remember that? He pulled a fire alarm to try to delay a vote. He lost his election. The squad doesn't exist anymore, and they've all been exposed, and it's all because of President Trump. And it's really an amazing thing that it's happened with the squad, because the squad had just complete free reign to act and do in any way they saw fit. Now, Candace Owens, very few people nationally are standing up to Candace Owens. Yesterday I talked about Bongino, and he did again today. Dana Loesch, just play a clip here, a little bit of this. Dana Loesch went after Candace Owens today. And I was talking yesterday that a lot of these conservative influencers, I think, are afraid of Candace Owens, and that's why they're not going after her. They don't want her coming after them. But then again, Bongino yesterday was saying, I don't care if I lose subscribers. I don't care if I lose listeners and viewers. I'm not going to stand for this. So, there's some people think that some of the big name conservatives that having condemned Candace Owens for this Bride of Charlie thing, that they're afraid of losing subscribers and viewers. Yeah, maybe, you go to that generation, that's food to them, that's oxygen to them, to lose a subscriber is like the end of the world. So that it could be all of the above, who knows? But they certainly haven't been standing up for Charlie's widow. And when you're a good friend or best friend, as they all have claimed to be with Charlie Kirk, if a good close best friend of yours is murdered in a brutal political assassination or just dies in a car accident, you, as a man, as a gentleman, you stand up for his widow. I mean, but not these guys. But Dana Loesch, listen to her. She made some points here about Candace Owens.
One of his guests, his guest tonight, he announced it earlier, is Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk's widow is going to be there. So I feel like it's gone on long enough, and I'm so tired of this, all of this nonsense that I keep seeing. This, and I hate giving people oxygen that I don't think deserve it. Candace Owens is a DEI hire for the right. The right got super excited, as they do with unproven people who are brand new to the principle and have no intellectual mooring for some reason. And they just get super excited. Like, this person's going to be the savior of the movement. This is going to be, and it's not. I mean, the savior is you.
Okay. Yeah. What she says is true. Since the Obama era, the Republican Party has gone out to find black Republicans that'll go out there and promote our candidates or non-white candidates, and Candace Owens may have been some of that, and I agree. She's kind of like, she was a DEI recruit of the MAGA movement. I think Dana Loesch is right about that, and she's doing so much damage to our movement. She really is. But this latest thing she's doing is doing damage to her to the level where maybe she's losing her own, some of her own credibility. I did see, let me see if I have this. This was a little troubling to me. This is, let me pull this up. This is Megyn Kelly. Listen to this. This is Megyn Kelly talking about Candace.
So in any event, Candace knows I disagree with her on this. Petty internet people want to turn that into a cat fight between Candace and yours truly, which will fail. She and I actually have only gotten closer over the past couple of months as people try to make me attack her. So fuck off, okay?
What is it with everyone dropping all these F-bombs all the time? Bongino yesterday, Megyn Kelly today. Is that the new trend to start using F-bombs if you're conservative? Why would you become closer friends or even be with in a friendship status with someone doing the things that Candace Owens is doing to a man's widow who was just brutally assassinated a few short months ago? I don't get that at all. All right, listen, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, there's a lot more to share. Don't go anywhere. My name's Brian. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast, which is available wherever you get podcasts. Just search for The Brian Craig Show, and I'll pop up. We'll be right back.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, On sale for $17.98. Wait on it. Mega sale only $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
All right, yeah, and remember, that's promo code KANE, K-A-N-E, at checkout. Now, if you'd like to support my program, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes, access to exclusive live streams, and a lot of other exclusive things that no one else has access to. There's a link in the description to my Patreon page. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get a live, on-air thank you shout-out on every episode. The names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Wesley, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, Doris, and Rick. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. There's a link in the description to my Patreon page. Thanks in advance. I saw this story today. I couldn't believe this. Ex-Vogue editor says she self-downgraded from first class on a flight to Milan after realizing the premium cabin was filled with white men, and she didn't want to sit around white men. It doesn't get more racist than that, man, does it? It doesn't. It just does not get more racist than that. That's textbook racism. You know, there's this global stereotype that any negative racial feelings held by any human beings are primarily held solely by white people, and anyone else who has any type of views, opinions, or does something that's viewed as racist, they're not racist. They're justified in doing this for some past things that didn't happen. I saw a YouTuber, she's a white American blonde girl who lives in Japan, and she's married to a Japanese guy. And she was talking about the racism that the Japanese have for white people. And she did a YouTube video. If you search this subject on YouTube, I'm sure it'll come up. She did this YouTube video, which was amazing, that when she was on the subway in Tokyo, if she sat down next to a Japanese person, they would get up and move, that they don't even want to sit next to white people. And it's true, and they talk about white people have an odor to them and all these crazy things. I've never seen anything like this. So, no, and this is textbook. And you look at someone like this who's an ex-Vogue editor. They can afford a first-class airfare without even blinking to Europe, going to Milan, well, excuse me, for some fashion thing or other, and they're still a victim. You know, they're still a victim. But I was wondering, it says she's an ex-Vogue editor. Is it possible she couldn't afford the first class anymore because she's not with Vogue and Vogue isn't covering it? And somebody found out that she was in Coach maybe, or she was afraid somebody would catch her in Coach, so she came up with this virtue signaling thing. Which do you think? Do you think she made it up because she couldn't afford a first-class ticket and was embarrassed and made up this racial thing? I think the second is probably true. It doesn't make what she said or does here any less racist. It's maybe even more racist than if the first story were true, but I think that's it, you know. It's like I saw one guy who was a rap artist years ago, and he took this picture of him in front of a private jet and was talking about flying on a private jet somewhere, and then someone found him in Coach on a regular airplane flying there, and he was humiliated. It was all over social media a few years ago. I think it's probably more along the lines of that. Another person who humiliated themselves last night was, of course, the Senator Sedition, Lex Luthor here, Senator Mark Kelly, who's a real psycho. I mean, this guy's psycho. It's frightening to me that Mark Kelly, that they used to let him fly spaceships, take rockets into space, and that he flew fighter jets. that could go supersonic speeds and had missiles and stuff on them, because this guy is so insane. How could you trust this guy with this type of equipment? So he was very humiliated as well, because the camera was a close-up of him, and he wouldn't stand up about the, if you support Americans not being murdered by illegal, stand up, and he wouldn't stand up. And he had that close-up of him on all the networks, and he was there judging President Trump, and he was sitting next to that CIA senator, and he was completely humiliated. And what he did was a little worse than Ilhan Omar. He took out his phone and made a video immediately after leaving the State of the Union.
Hey, I just walked out of the State of the Union. That was some crazy speech. An hour and 45, 50 minutes of just grievance. Donald Trump used most of that time, most of it, to try to further divide us as a nation. It was angry. It wasn't what I expect of a president.
The thing here with, first off, everything he said's absurd. I'm not going to explain. You guys know. I don't have to explain. You know what he's saying is absurd. But here's Mark Kelly walking around acting like there's something President Trump could have said that he would have approved of, when there's nothing President Trump could say or do that he would approve of.
I mean, we've had 250 years of people that have held this office, a long line of great Americans of both parties who often use that opportunity to bring the country together.
Oh, really? Give me an example of a Republican you approve of and what they said in the State of the Union that you approve of. I'd like to hear what this is, Lex Luthor.
And, Donald Trump just chose to do the opposite. There were some moments, I really, the honoring of veterans and service members, I think
he's going to hide behind that because he's got this sedition case over his head.
It was one of the
over his bald head.
Positive parts of this, especially the 2 Medal of Honor winners. But other than that, I think this was a incredibly disappointing and low point, if there can be one, in this president's time in office.
Whatever. Now, I will say this. I've said this before. This is so true. You can say whatever you want about Senator Mark Kelly. You can criticize him on anything you want, but you can't criticize his hair. That's for sure. Oh, my goodness. If you're new to the program, make sure you subscribe. And also, please like the video, guys. When you like the video, that helps so much. Getting the video recommended to people that have not yet found my channel. Liking the video is so helpful. So please make sure that you like the video before you go. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Take care. I will talk to you next time.